Hello, everyone, and welcome to my final project for this course. As you can see from my title card, I've chosen to complete my project over the British writer Clive Barker and his contribution to the modern Gothic. The scope of this project is rather limited due to our short time together, so I'm going to focus only on one of his works, and that is his 1982 play, Frankenstein in Love, or The Life of Death. So to begin, a brief exploration of Clive Barker's background is in order. As you see in this picture here, the one on the left is going to be one of Barker's most famous monster creations. And of course, the person on the right is Clive Barker, the creator. And you'll have to do some more research to figure out why this particular monster became one of Barker's biggest disappointments. But enough of that, that's a tangent. Let's get back to our scope here in the project. Barker was born in 1952 in Liverpool, England, to a painter who was his mother and a personnel director who was his father. Barker studied English and philosophy at the University of Liverpool. He began writing by crafting short stories in the horror fantasy genre, blending together horror elements with fantastical landscapes and also contemporary characters. Many of his short stories have been adapted into movies, including Rawhead Rex and The Midnight Meat Train. Barker's writing pushes the envelope of horror, often including darkly comedic elements. His first novel was published in 1985, titled The Damnation Game, with themes of cannibalism, self-mutilation, and incest woven into a Faustian tale. His novel Weave World was nominated for the World Fantasy Award for Best Novel. Barker also has a series for young adults, The Books of Oberat. His creativity has been utilized in both the realm of film, Hellraiser, Nightbreed being two, and comics, Nightbreed and Razorline being two examples of those. Clive Barker has had a share of unusual and tragic experiences, most notably his coma in 2012. Barker had gone to the dentist for routine work. During the visit, Barker's mouth was cut and a massive amount of bacteria was released into his bloodstream, a fact that became apparent after he arrived home and collapsed. Barker was in a coma due to toxic shock syndrome for close to 2 weeks and still has medical issues related to TSS to this day. And if you are interested in hearing his take on the coma, you can go to the website featured here. This website is a fan website that interviewed Clive Barker shortly after his recovery, and he talks about the experience and the impact it had on his life and writing. Now that a brief background has been established for Clive Barker, this project is going to turn its focus to one of Barker's works in particular, Frankenstein in Love, or The Life of Death. The picture here is a production pic from the play in 1982. This play was written in 1981 and produced for the stage in 1982 by Dog Productions, a playhouse that Barker helped create. The story centers around El Coco, a creation of the infamous Joseph Frankenstein. El Coco is the next leader of a banana republic country that has seized power through a coup. However, he is conflicted due to his being constructed from various body parts, a nod to the body politic, and is not always in control of his actions. This lack of control leads him to murder Maria, a fan dancer who haunts the play and becomes the narrator for the audience. El Coco is betrayed by his right-hand man, Cockatoo, who delivers El Coco into the clutches of his creator, Frankenstein. This presents major problems for El Coco and his newly discovered love, Veronique, a victim of Frankenstein's experiments. El Coco is killed and skinned. Cockatoo loses his sanity and locks himself and Veronique away in the presidential palace. Frankenstein is obsessed with using Veronique to spawn a new generation of creatures, but since Cockatoo has castrated himself in a bout of madness, Frankenstein decides to marry Veronique to ensure his vision of the future comes to fruition. El Coco wills himself back to life, acquires new skin from murdering people, and confronts Frankenstein. However, El Coco is physically unable to destroy Frankenstein without destroying himself. It is left up to Veronique to kill Frankenstein so she and El Coco can be together. Now, this play pays homage to Shelley while also exploring Barker's ideas of self-mutilation, pain and pleasure, and the human in the guise of monstrosity. These themes would run throughout the body of Barker's works in the future. However, this project would focus on how Barker took elements of the Gothic and elevated them to another level in the modern age. So to begin, Barker changed the trope of a fading aristocratic family into the idea of a failing regime. The picture here on the left is what one would consider an aristocratic family. And then the picture on the right is of a revolutionary Che Guevara. And if you look at the way he is dressed and go back to our former picture, you can definitely see some influences in the costume design choice for that character. The fortunes of Barker's fictional country are shifting as the old regime is overthrown by the new. As the fortunes of the country shift, Barker brings the theme of claustrophobia to the forefront of his play. This theme was common in classical Gothic writings from the mid to late 1800s. Authors were using a first-person narrative to describe sensations in minute detail, and many of these tales used the sensation of being buried alive, for example, Poe's The Premature Burial. Mood in Gothic storytelling also gives a sense of being suppressed, as well as psychological elements that are used to express a protagonist's sense of being trapped within themselves. In Frankenstein in Love, Barker brings in this theme from the onset when Maria, the dead fan dancer, describes to the audience the fact that they are buried alive. You are buried alive in a nameless city, in the vault beneath the palace of President Garcia Helidoro Perez. The play begins underground, where the recently deposed leader of the country, Perez, finds himself buried with Joseph Frankenstein's creatures. Maria refers to the palace as a vault, indicating death and burial, in this case, premature. He is trapped in a situation that inevitably will lead to his destruction, and the audience lives through his denial and dawning panic. They are trapped with him, feeling the weight of helplessness in the dark. Later in Act 2, Scene 2, the characters of Cockatoo and Veronique are locked away in the presidential palace as Cockatoo retreats from society and her life. At this point in the play, everything has stagnated. Veronique feels trapped, stripped of agency and movement. The palace is devoid of freshness, and the mood hangs heavy over the audience. And Frankenstein comments, "Do you hear the wind? It wants to get in, but all the doors are locked, and all the windows are shuttered. Lazaro bricked up some of them, big ones." Essentially, the characters in the palace are hiding from death, bringing to mind echoes of Poe's The Mask of the Red Death. There's even a reference to cholera by Cockatoo. Barker clearly recognized the oppressive, suffocating aspect of the Gothic, and he brings it into the modern age by using audience participation and a contemporary backdrop of shifting political ideology. The impression of claustrophobia is given to the audience through the narrator, Maria, and the necessary darkness of the theater. The sensation of claustrophobia is described by the player's dialogue and movements, spelling out the internal frustrations of the characters and providing a window into the psychological element. By writing the play with a political commentary running through the background, Barker makes a connection between claustrophobia, oppression, and false democracies. This system suffocates the populace, strangling growth economically and ideologically. Barker moved the theme of claustrophobia out of the internal and environmental to the ideological sphere. In the vein of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, Barker's play also explores the conflict of religion and science, or reason versus magic. Shelley's day was experiencing the beginnings of the Industrial Revolution. Religious ideals and imagery were being augmented or perhaps supplanted by emerging technological concepts. Psychology was finding its place as a legitimate science, and the human condition was examined through a lens of individualism. Shelley's Frankenstein was subtitled The Modern Prometheus, hearkening to the Greek myth of enlightenment, and the science Dr. Frankenstein uses was directly inspired by Galvanism. Barker chose to have his play pick up the theme of the implications of invasive science, the individualism of existence creation, and the capacity of self-destruction through his characters, particularly El Coco and Cockatoo. As in Shelley's novel, the creatures in the play created by Frankenstein are considered to be an affront to God. Maria details this concept for the audience. She says the walls here are slimy with human grease, for this was the operating room of Dr. Joseph Frankenstein, surgeon. Atrocities were committed here in the name of God and science, acts so obscene, they beggar words. So El Coco is described as a salamander, visualized here on the right, and is structured to be the Prometheus of Shelley's vision, visualized here on the left. He introduces a new way of viewing the world and seeks to be accepted as an individual in his own right. While El Coco does fall back into primitiveness or savagery at times, he strives to be enlightened as compared to other Frankenstein creations, Lazaro and Filozzo being two of those creations. Towards the play's close, the theme of reason versus magic is brought to the forefront through El Coco. Magic, miracles, the pursuit of the impossible, it all repulses me. Give me order, give me calm, law, reason. Also, as Shelley's Frankenstein destroys himself, the audience sees the same self-destruction with Barker's Cockatoo. Cockatoo destroys himself through guilt, isolation, castration, and immolation. He regrets his rejection of El Coco and later aspires to become like El Coco by walking in fire. Cockatoo's desire to be just leads to his self-mutilation and isolation, whereas his need for redemption leads to his death. Barker expanded upon Shelley's themes present in Frankenstein and the Creature, creating a more complex version of the creature in El Coco and a foil in Cockatoo. He takes the religion-science comparison into a different social sphere, that of idealism and necessity. So although Frankenstein and Love and other works by Clive Barker offer many examples of how he's contributed to the use of the Gothic and modernity, the scope of this project can't cover them all. For a deeper examination on Barker's interpretation of the Gothic, novels such as Cold Heart Canyon and The Great and Secret Show are great resources. His film Nightbreed also offers examples of the uncanny and the life of death. For younger readers, The Thief of Always offers an introduction to Barker's modern Gothic style. And as seen here, these are works that were cited for my final project, the top one being the book where the play is located. And the slide here are the books I would recommend, or the sources I would recommend that are Barker's body of works. He has quite an extensive body of work. Not all of them would necessarily fall into what we would consider Gothic, but all are interesting explorations of the human condition, or in human condition, I suppose, if you look at it from a different point of view. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to my final project, and have a great rest of your day.